Joining me now to go over the day's top stories is Nick Cater of the Menzies Research Centre. Nick, the Albanese government is refusing to call Hamas's massacre of 1,200 Israeli men, women and children an overseas terrorist act, thereby denying friends and families of the victims any financial assistance here in Australia. It's been over 100 days since the animalistic slaughter of Jewish lives at the hands of an internationally recognised terror group. Nick, how on earth can the Albanese government justify this?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Liz. This is an international terror group committing what is undoubtedly acts of terrorism on a civilian population. Acts of gross terrorism, the likes of which I can't ever recall seeing, and certainly, which, as we know, it's the worst atrocity to be committed to the Jewish people since World War II. So it's undoubtedly a terrorist attack. And why Albanese can't bring himself to do so? Well, there are two reasons. He's beholden to two groups of people. One is the wacky far left, amongst whom anti-Semitism has bizarrely become fashionable, and the other group are the Islamic constituents in Labor electorates. 11 Labor electorates have a Muslim population larger than 10%. Now, they're not all, and a lot of Muslim people would be as appalled as you and I are at this, but the Albanese government, nonetheless, I think, feels it has to pander to these people for just base political gains. It is terrible to surrender Australian policy to those forces, and worse still, to lose your moral compass in doing so.
Hear, hear. And this failure to make the declaration 100 days on means Australian Jews who lost loved ones in the attack are not eligible for any financial assistance which they would otherwise get through the Victim of Terrorism Overseas Payment Scheme. So there are real-world consequences to this inaction, Nick, and we know that it's not a case of ignorance, because Andrew Hastie, member for Canning, wrote to them days ago bringing this to their attention because one such family were in his electorate and in dire need of said financial assistance.
Well, that's right, Liz, and I'd just like to use this platform to say that although the government is failing to support Israel and failing to support the Jewish population in Australia in the proper way, many individual Australians are. I'm sporting the Israeli flag here, and I'll continue to do so on Sky News until the Albanese government shows that it can actually adopt a correct and morally correct platform on this.
You're quite right, Nick. I keep saying if they are shilling for votes in Western Sydney and other seats, as they seem to be doing through this inaction and others calling for ceasefire, etc. and so on, they're forgetting that there are millions of righteous Gentiles in this country who are taking notes and will make them pay at the election box. Well, 17 people were evacuated last night from a North Bondi unit block after yet another e-bike exploded. Nick, how many times do we have to see these lithium-ion batteries blow up in people's faces? It's incredibly unsafe. You can't put the fire out for days due to the nature of the battery. How much more needs to happen before our government takes any action?
Unfortunately, there's this kind of ideological fixation on electric vehicles that'll be very hard to break. Having decided that these are the answer to all our climate problems, just to trade in our decent diesel or petrol vehicles for electric vehicles will solve everything, and the government putting incentives there to make it happen, other governments in other parts of the world mandating that you move to electric cars. They are very imperfect technology. And the internal combustion engine and the diesel engine have been more than 120 years in development to get to where we are now. A very safe, very efficient way of propelling a vehicle along. Electric vehicles have just begun. And lithium-ion batteries, well, I've got a fridge in the back of my Hilux, and I had to put in a second battery for that. It's a lithium-ion battery, but I was not going to put it under the bonnet. People tell me that's really dangerous. So, we have to be aware of these real dangers from lithium-ion batteries and act accordingly. And unfortunately, government policy is driving people towards this unsafe technology.